Welcome to the Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center, located at the Directorate General Customs and Excise Headquarters Complex in Rawamangun, East Jakarta. It was established in 1966, aiming to provide world-class quality training within the fields of customs and excise. Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center is a part of Financial Education and Training Agency under the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia and headed by a director. With its 14 best trainers who are highly qualified and well-respected specialists in their fields. The Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center has officially become the regional training center for the Asia-Pacific region after being endorsed by the head of customs administrations in the Asia-Pacific region at 21st WCO AP Regional Head of Customs Administration Conference on November 12, 2020. The commencement was marked with the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between the World Customs Organization and the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia on January 29, 2021. We organize customs and excise courses in a various number of specialized fields through the annual scheduled training programs and other additional courses to meet the training needs that arise every year. We also adopt diverse strategies to promote digital learning activities that result in the massive open online courses such as e-learning, distance learning, webinar, and talk show. The building features training facilities that consist of administrative offices for the Customs Training Department, a 100-seat auditorium for trainings and large group meetings, 19 classrooms, each with the capacity of 30 students, training lab with the equipment for simulation training, mock container examination, 3 dormitories with 70 rooms, digital learning room, computer laboratory, mini office, library, lounge, studio, main hall, dining room, fitness center, entertainment room, stadium, swimming pool, tennis court. Now we are more than ready to be the best place to respond to officers' training needs, to forge links with neighboring countries, and to facilitate the follow-up World Customs Organization programs in the Asia-Pacific region.
Customs Collage, where you can learn anywhere, anything and anywhere about customs. Find it only Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center. Customs Collage, collaboration beyond the age.
Thank you, Sylvia and Cesar. Honorable Director of International and Public Affairs, Directorate General of Customs and Excise, Mr. R. Saribidayat, Vice Secretary of Customs New Zealand Mission to ASEAN, Mr. Alvin Neto, and distinguished participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank God the Almighty this valuable opportunity given to us so we can meet today in this joyous event webinar on Trade Facilitation Measure to address COVID-19 as part of Customs Collage, Custom Collaboration Beyond the Age. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to all research persons and participants from Indonesia International Customs Administration all over the world. Thank you all for your presence this event. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is the Custom Collage webinar series this year, and since it was first conducted in 2020. Custom Collage, Custom Collaboration Beyond the Age is a series of events intended to provide knowledge sharing, experience exchange, and discussion among international customs administration. In the previous events, we have invited many experts in a range of diverse topics, including trade facilitation, custom capacity building, transfer pricing, transnational organized crime, strategic trade control enforcement, and the most recent of Authorized Economic Operator 2.0. They were carried out as a form of RTC Indonesia contribution to the development of human resource competencies and strengthening collaboration between neighboring countries. Distinguished this college, COVID-19 has been going on for almost 2 years. And besides the pandemic it also has caused disruption in the international trade order. Supply and demand both had been affected greatly from COVID-19 related regulation, namely lockdown and work from home. While well-intended, these policies force government and business alike to find new ways to transport goods and deliver services within limitations such as change in consumption preferences and poor connectivity due to border closure. Looking at the current state of the world economy, it remains unstable as economic crises occur alternately in various parts of the world. Connectivity issues between economies become one of the main factors that accelerate the spread of crisis. For that matter, Custom administration also face a challenge in their role to facilitate trade and provide services in this time of uncertainties. After all, COVID-19 has significantly hindered the distribution of goods and caused mismatch between supply and demand. One objective of today's webinar is to discuss what measures have been imposed by Customs Administration in tackling issues arising from COVID-19 limitation. In addition to that, this webinar on Trade Facilitation Measure to address COVID-19 will also specifically address how the Customs Administration implement regulation to promote trade facilitation that could boost international trade in the light of COVID-19. Today, we are very happy to have Mr. Alwin Neto, the first Secretary of Customs New Zealand Mission to ASEAN, here with us to shed some light on this topic and share his experience and knowledge. Thank you very much, Mr. Alwin, for your time. Also, thank you to all the participants from Customs Administration, other government agencies, private sectors, and also the public at large for your participation. Not to forget my sincere gratitude to the committee to their dedication, time, and constant effort in organizing this series of webinars. I believe we would not be able to have this conducive environment with the support of each and every one present here. Finally, with this remark, I would like to conclude by wishing you good health and officially declaring the opening of Customs Collage series webinar on Trade Facilitation Measure to address COVID-19. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you very much, Master of Ceremony. Distinguished Honorable Mr. Hari Mulya, Head of Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Centers, Regional Training Center of WCO, yeah. And also Mr. Alwin Neto, First Secretary for Customs from the New Zealand Mission to ASEAN, my very close friend, yeah. And all of distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. To begin my remarks, I'd like to thank to God of Almighty for the infallible health and opportunity that's enabled us to gather in this webinar in a sane, sound, and hopefully a happy state. Welcome also to the awaited webinar on Trade Facilitation Measure to address COVID-19 as a part of Customs Collage, custom collaboration beyond the age. I'd like also to extend a sincere welcome to our resources person, Mr. Alwin Neto. We really appreciate your valuable contribution and also time. So thank you very much. And I would also like to dedicate my warm welcome to all participants from Indonesian Customs and also many participants from various countries under the WCO. And the government representatives and also the public community join this event this morning. Last but not least, I would send my gratitude and appreciation to the Regional Training Center of Indonesia for organizing this webinar and for making it possible to participate by a wide range of participants from national and also multinational level within custom area to the public community. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that the trade facilitation, pandemic handling, and economic recovery have become frequently heard and become the topic of discussion recently in this recent 2 years. And also why we are having these words, because the situation of the world is facing due to this pandemic is even changing and extraordinary. And the government and all the layer of community are forced to operate in a context radical uncertainty that every decision making and experience could become a learned lesson worth sharing. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 outbreak has become a global pandemic that severely affected numerous aspects of our lives, causing health crisis and significantly hitting the global economy. The government took for unprecedented measures to contain the pandemic by closing border or shutting off large area of territories. This has unavoidable caused significant disruption to the global supply chain, which it alone need to continue to function and maintain essential supplies to be available in the required area, as it is expected level, and to prevent the collapse of the global economy. With that in mind, a quick collaboration response is vital to make a balance between pandemic handling and economic recoveries. Indonesia Customs highly appreciates the WCO for the proactive assistance and strong collaboration in taking a significant role to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on economies and societies worldwide by continuously initiating, implementing, and evaluating all necessary and appropriate effort as a global custom community. As we can learn that during the 137th session of the WCO has adopted a resolution on the role of custom in facilitating the cross-border movement of situationally critical medicines and vaccines. So it's become invaluable guidance and measures among member administration to expedite the COVID-19 vaccine global distribution. In this regard, Indonesian Customs also and other member administration has also contributed its national best practice. With the hard work of the WCO Secretariat, it has been made available on the WCO website for member administration and supply chain stakeholders. So all of the community could access and got information concerning those protocols. To support capacity building and awareness raising efforts, W has also been continuously initiating workshops, conferences, working groups meeting to provide valuable forum for discussion and sharing experiences among members and other supply chain stakeholders. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, participants, as we have progressed, the challenge now is how to take a crucial role in minimizing the impact and supporting a solid and even better recovery process. We have been testing our system and enforced to perform the best resilience practice to make health and economic recovery effort work hand in hand. The Ministry of Finance has initiated a national economic recovery program with key objectives to mitigate the COVID-19 impact and stimulate the economic activities through fiscal and monetary funds stimulus on a holistic economic recovery policy. In this regard, Indonesian Customs takes an active part in enacting custom facilities aimed for health and economic recovery through fiscal and procedural initiative. To foster health recovery, Indonesia Customs has enacted custom and or excise facilitation as well as taxation with the issuance of the Ministry of Finance Regulation number 92, year 2021, in the form of custom and excise and tax exemption that applies for importation of COVID-19 related goods and medication for commercial and also for non-commercial purposes. And the Ministry of Finance of Regulation number 188 is years 2020 that's applied for importation of vaccines and vaccines related items. For procedural views, importer can utilize a single submission system that is made available through the Indonesian National Single Window. The integrated system enables the tax or duty exemption permit and recommendation to be issued within 3 hours working upon completed submission. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Indonesian Customs also initiated task force for service accelerating in the entry gate with respective agencies. Indonesian Customs also created joint standard operating procedure and conduct close coordination and demonstrates continuous dissemination. Thus, the facilitation can benefit the most people with active and collaborative effort. It is reported that as September 2021, Indonesia Customs has been facilitating a total 6.07 trillion rupiah tax or duty exemption on essential goods used for COVID-19 handling and 282.21 million doses of vaccine already imported. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, September 28 this year, Indonesia Customs also conducted a webinar on the influence of export and imports for economic growth. As part of 75th Indonesia Customs Day celebration, within the economic perspective, we observed that during the moment of crisis, the export and import activities play a significant role in the national economic, even when trade activities has shown a decline to massive mobility restriction. Also, the health recovery effort is indeed vital in allowing source to support the success and economic recovery. During the first year of the pandemic 2020, the Indonesian economic slowed down to minus growth, and so did the export and import activity exhibit negative 11%. However, in 2021, export and import volume start to show positive growth in fostering economics-oriented industries. Additional economic and fiscal incentives are provided toward import facility to export and bonded zone industries as facilitated by Ministry of Finance Regulation number 31, 2020. As the third quarter of 2021, the export contribution of import facility for Kita and bonded zone has shown to be at the level of 40.64%, taking significant portion to the national economic growth even during this moment of crisis. And also, we also could report that the growth of economy of Indonesia, the growth of Indonesia now in the second quarter is already hit 7%. This is very, very big, showing how good Indonesian government in tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Indonesian Customs is optimistic that the recovery will continue on to progress and achieve an even better and stronger comeback. With solid collaboration among governments and other supply chain communities. Later, my colleague, Mr. Alwin Neto, will share with us best practices and challenges in trade facilitation measures during the COVID-19 pandemic and everything in between from a global perspective. We hope also today's webinar provide us with an excellent opportunities for a sharing, learning, to deepen and enrich our understanding on related topic. I wish that this webinar will have a great success. So thank you very much. Stay safe and healthy. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day.
Thank you, Bapak R. Syarif Hidayat.
Bapak Hari Mulia and Bapak R. Syarif Hidayat, we are very honored to have you both joining our webinar today. Should you have other agendas, please feel free to leave this meeting room. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we enter the main event, let's meet our webinar mascot to enlighten us with the overview of today's webinar topic. Jane and Tirta, the screen is yours.
Hi Tirta, how are things?
Jane, I'm great. I'm so excited that today we'll have our last Customs Collage series for this year. Do you know about that?
Yes, of course. And today's material is about trade facilitation measures to address COVID-19.
Wow, that's good, I think. We have to keep updating our knowledge on trade facilitation because in addition to creating a global health crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic also caused a strong disruption to the international trade order. Economic instability, which is characterized by economic crises that occur alternately.
That's right, Tirta. In many parts of the world, there is no sign of certainty that it will end. Connectivity between economics in this context then becomes a factor that accelerates the spread of a crisis. In this case, it becomes its own challenges faced by customs administrations around the world.
That's for sure.
Well, Tirta, we have to share and discuss about the role of customs administration in handling the COVID-19 pandemic.
That's for sure. Let's join the webinar to enhance our knowledge about trade facilitation measures to address COVID-19.
What a great information. Thanks, Jen and Tirta. Well, now it's the time for the main event that we've been waiting for.
We will have 2 sessions for the presentations as we will break for a moment in the middle. After that, there will be a Q&A session.
For all participants who want to ask questions, you can write your question via Zoom chat, Slido, or later after the presentation right on Q&A sessions, you can live here by raising your hand.
Before that, Cesar, let me introduce our speaker for today's webinar, and I want to thank him also for spending his time with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have First Secretary Customs New Zealand Mission to ASEAN, Mr. Alwin Neto, as our guest speaker. Mr. Alwin Neto will talk about trade facilitation measures to address COVID-19.
I believe that we can gain and enhance our knowledge by joining with him today. Mr. Alwin Neto, the time is yours.
Tena katoa, selamat pagi semuanya, namaskar, ula vinaka. Greetings, comrades, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a privilege to be invited by DJBC management as the speaker for this webinar. While I would have dearly loved to have joined you all in person, I am pleased that we can involve larger groups by webinars, more than we would have been able to had we tried to have a face-to-face meeting. So there's always great positives that come out of a crisis. The response of economies to COVID-19 was pragmatic and innovative. Customs administrations quickly adjusted to the new situation in a number of ways. We moved quickly, increasingly towards paperless trade. Import processes were streamlined and we went online. Documentary requirements for border clearances were relaxed. Allow me to talk about these in more detail. I will start with giving you a very brief overview of what I'm going to talk about. So here I'll start off with talking about COVID-19 in the Asia Pacific, our case numbers, the impact on trade, customs and COVID-19, and that's the critical part, the role that customs has to play. Trade facilitation measures, COVID-19 in the New Zealand, our case numbers, the impact on trade, how New Zealand responded through trade facilitation measures, the future outlook and recommendations for all of us, and then some final comments. And as the MC has mentioned, we'll follow it up with a Q&A session. First of all, I must acknowledge the excellent comments made by Park Harry as well as Park Sharif. I think you beautifully in your words set out the scene for the whole presentation. And you've talked about really the seriousness and the impact of what COVID has done for all of us and how we need to get together and work collaboratively. So thank you so much. So I'll start with COVID-19 and the cases. It's been a defining moment on the whole of the world. It's had a massive global impact on health and the economy. See, the first graph that I'm showing you is COVID-19 cases per day in the Asia Pacific region. The highest number of cases occurred between April and June of 400,000 cases. There are 39 countries in the Asia Pacific region, and till date, there are something like 59 million cases of COVID. Here is a graph which shows you the COVID-19 per capita region. As you will see that Asia Pacific has relatively low number of cases per capita compared to, say, Europe, the US and Canada, Latin America, and the Middle East. This slide, we'll talk about the impact of COVID on trade. COVID has had huge trade impact and trade disruptions across the globe. The supply chain shock has mainly driven restriction of activities due to lockdowns and distancing measures to contain the spread of COVID, causing sectors to really struggle to keep up with demand. The demand shock reflected both the income effect suffered by workers in the restricted activities, as well as the diminished mobility and the changes in consumption patterns. By March 2020, trade volumes plummeted as worldwide lockdowns disrupted or halted many global supply chains. All modes of transports were affected. Most airlines tended to travel in the belly of planes. Goods were sent there. These planes almost stopped overnight. Freighting services were badly affected. The main transmission of international freight, as you know, is through shipping lines. Cargo trade slowed down dramatically as the pandemic reduced the number of people on wharves. Some dockings were reduced and some crews, many of them, as you know, were quarantined. Now, as you look at from the graph that I'm showing you, the graph shows the dramatic increase, the dramatic drop in global vessel calls occurring in weeks 12 and 13. See, this is the first graph. So you look at the dramatic change from the previous year and the fall down below. you can see that the most significant drop occurred in weeks 21 to 24, that is mid-May to June, when widespread lockdowns occurred. The chart B, on the other hand, shows the dramatic increase in shipping costs. Have a look at the dramatic increase. Just think that shipping costs have now gone as much as 350% of what they originally were in pre-COVID days. 350%. And we know, some tell me it's almost reaching 400%. So here's a slide which talks about the impact on trade. Globally, we saw change in trade patterns as production and consumption scaled back across the entire globe. Overall, trade volumes fell 5.3% in 2020, and the world GDP contracted by 3.8%. The graph on the top shows trade in manufactured goods declined significantly in the second quarter of 2020 and has recovered in the third quarter. Automobile products were badly hit by the pandemic. There was a strong growth in textiles in the second and third quarter, reflected by the high demand of face masks and other PPE equipment. Computers also saw a steady increase, reflecting strong demands as household and businesses upgraded their equipment to facilitate working arrangements. When I look back at us meeting and talking through Zoom, you can imagine what technology has done and how closely we have bonded and taken advantage of this. Chart 2 shows merchandise exports and imports. The pattern of that has changed. Compared to other countries in the region, if you look, and I apologize for the graph being rather small, but we can see that Asian exports saw a much smaller decline in 2020 and recovered sharply. This can be explained by the relatively small impact COVID-19 had on certain economies, and by the fact that the region has been supplying the entire world with consumer goods and medical supplies during the pandemic, driving up regional exports. This shows how important the Asia region is for world's trade and for our contribution towards recovery. The World Trade Organization projects trade volumes to increase by 8% in 2021, but at the same time shows a slowdown in 2022, with total volumes of global trade remaining below pre-pandemic levels. And that's always going to be the bottom line. The next slide shows you customs and COVID-19. The bottom line, customs administration play a critical role in responding to the challenges of the pandemic. We are almost 2 years into the global pandemic, and it continues to have a devastating effect on the people and economies. Be it may, the pandemic has highlighted a number of weaknesses in our existing customs processes and the need to modernize customs procedures, promote trade facilitation, and secure global supply chain. Some of these weaknesses are mentioned in the slide. You can see the inefficient border processes, the reliance on paper-based trading, and I'll talk about this later, port congestion, financial hardship on micro, small to medium enterprises. And in this matter, I'll just talk to when one of the trade and private sector people was talking to me. He said, it's okay with you government people. At this point of a crisis, you still get paid. My business is shut down. I can't pay my employees. So I just want to point out how hard the business is affected. Lack of efficient risk management contingency plans. Lack of coordination among border agencies. Customs administrations have, across the Asia Pacific, have adopted a range of measures to continue the flow of trade while preventing the spread of the virus. There are a range of measures that have been adopted that could permanently be adopted in future to avoid future disruptions. Measures identified will definitely help stimulate economic recovery and create more connected, secure, and resilient global supply chains. I just want to point out that some of these measures really fit in well with the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. So measures like pre-arrival of processing, Article 7, electronic payments, 7.2, release and clearance of goods ahead of final determination of customs duties. Again, these are measures that sit so well nicely. Use of post-clearance audits, expedited shipments, Article 7.8, perishable goods, border agency cooperation, simplified import-export and transit formalities, acceptance of copies instead of the originals, single window systems. This is so much fits well with the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. Now, through our research, and this is not research only of New Zealand, but it's research from a number of agencies, including the APEC forums, they found out that there are 32 trade facilitation measures that one can see that will help. And I'll very quickly run through these. They are accepting scanned documents, additional resources to clear urgent shipments, risk management settings to be adjusted. As I said, adoption of FTA, the World Trade Organization FTA, advanced clearance, alternate ways of inspection, assisting traders and business community, their planning, coordinated border management, all working together. Crisis teams separately set up at circuit breakers for delays, disaster relief planning, early warning system for trade delays, tell traders early, enabling online payments, expanding deferred and delayed payment arrangements, expediting clearance of certain goods. You've already identified, how PNP goods, medicines have to be quickly cleared through. Extending time limits for payment. Financial hardship is what our traders are facing. Facilitating temporary entry and carne requirements. Flexible regulation. Help desk. People want to talk to someone when they are in strife. Increase reliance on post-audit activity. Leveraging trusted trader arrangement. Partnerships between customs and trade. Mechanisms for engagement with industry, paperless trade, prioritizing relief shipments, proactive communication, teleconferences with traders, removing duty on critical goods, reviewing time frames, single window, utilizing national facilitation committees, and waiving penalties or errors. So these are some of the ones that really come to mind, and that's what I think is really, really important to talk about. Now, some of these measures I'll talk a little more in detail, which is implementing of paperless trade. I can't emphasize enough how important this measure is for trade. Paperless trade, as you can see, it refers to the digitalization of information flows, including making available and enabling the exchange of trade-related data and documents electronically. In other words, it refers to cross-border trade transaction using electronic data in lieu of paper documents. Due to congestion and delays in freight and the need to physically distance, customs officers can't meet workers at the port. They have customs agencies in many parts of the world have agreed to accept electronic versions of documents to continue the movement of goods. Customs administrations have made electronic versions of documents available, and they've allowed it to be legally acceptable and equivalent to paper documents. I just like to take an example, particularly of the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, where all the parties to the agreement got together, particularly in relation to the certificate of origin, which is the prime document to allow tariff preference. And you can see that document on my screen here. So according to the existing rules and the trade provisions of the treaty, you need an original hard copy. But in COVID times, that just now was not possible with trade disruptions. So therefore, we came up with the idea of getting acceptance of electronic copies. And that has been accepted by all the parties. I can't tell you how important traders have appreciated this initiative of ANSFATA parties, particularly the Customs Administration. Implementing electronic and paperless measures benefiting the region significantly. It decreased bottlenecks, sped up border processing, and reduced costs for traders. We encourage all economies to permanently implement paperless trade. Research from the United Nations and the World Trade Organization show that there is a complete shift to paperless trade can actually reduce transaction costs significantly. The estimates are between 15% to as much as 45% of cost savings, depending on the stage of implementation that an economy has reached. This amounts, comrades, to billions and billions of dollars annually being saved. Paperless transactions and systems will increase clarity and streamline clearance processes for enhanced, and the industry will experience time saving. Industry is so keen on 2 points: costs and time savings. If you give them costs and time savings, they will be forever grateful. The savings and costs to trade will help the micro, small, and medium enterprises enter international markets and become more competitive. Implementing trade and implementing paperless trade requires appropriate infrastructure, and we accept that this doesn't happen over time. There are legal frameworks. Border agencies have to collaborate. There would be a lot of risk management that would need to come into play. There would have to be data and data standards, and you'd have to really collaborate with the trade stakeholders. I just want to mention here the note of what the trade ministers, the APEC trade ministers have said. They've talked about that these concrete steps make a significant contribution to overall responses to COVID. And we will accelerate the implementation of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement through the articles. And they really talk about how important, and I put that on the slide to show you how critical that really is.
Mr. Awinetto, we can't hear your voice. Is there any problem with your audio?
Yeah, 1 second. Huh?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. My apologies. Did I get you on the right slide, or do I need to repeat anything, please?
Maybe from the last sentence, sir. It's just a moment.
So should I talk from entry from the slide in front of me? Is that okay?
Yeah, is that okay, sir?
Yes, yes. My apologies, comrades. So I'll just talk about the advance and pre-entry clearance of goods. This again, I have to say, is critical. This was widely adopted measures and involves approving goods and clearing them prior to arriving at the port. The goods can therefore be immediately taken off. So speeds up clearance of goods, it avoids blockages, mitigates pressure on customs staff, because you can imagine if all the goods are arriving at the same time, it is just impossible for customs staff who have to maintain social distancing themselves to clear the goods. Customs administration's fast-track clearance of essential goods such as PPE equipment, medical supplies. Thailand, Japan, and Malaysia in particular all have systems to allow goods to be cleared before arrival. And I know Indonesia and other countries in our region would definitely hand them. But I just wanted to talk about the example of Thailand. So to expedite customs clearance, an advance entry system allows importers to file the required documents, including the bill of lading, the invoices, prior to the arrival of the goods in Thailand. The amount of duties can then be determined with reference to the documents sent, and once the goods arrive, they can be quickly charged to appropriate duty and cleared. Japan also, there's an example of their pre-arrival examination system that allows the importer to submit import-related documents before the cargo arrives in Japan, or before even any import-related procedures start, such as, import licenses. which are issued by the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. So by completing the examination, even before the cargo arrives, goods can be quickly cleared and the importers can be notified should there be an inspection required. The WCO guidelines for the immediate release of consignments by customs is a useful tool that can help customs administration expedite the clearance of all low-value goods and e-commerce shipments. The guidelines aim to facilitate the pre-arrival processing and risk management of consignments based on advanced electronic information. They streamline and expedite the handling of shipments before arrival and assist customs administration in determining data requirements and the exact procedure that they feel that should be applied. Central to all this is the customs leveraging of trusted trader arrangements. Customs administration applied additional trade facilitation measures through the AEO program. These arrangements are for low risk importers and traders, right? They are aimed to simplify customs procedures for AEO partners. They prioritize clear low risk trade. They avoid trade delays and build-ups at the port. They established accredited importers and exporters based on compliance records so that they can get their goods cleared quickly and avoid delays and reducing border clearance times and costs. New Zealand has its own secure export partnership scheme, and Australia has their trusted trader program, which recognizes secure supply chains and compliant trade practices. They offered tailored trade facilitation benefits which can be leveraged by businesses during the pandemic and get goods moving across borders really quickly. Some of the alternative ways to inspect cargo. Customs administrations are now all getting together to try and use innovative ways to examine cargo quickly and efficiently due to the supply chain disruptions while maintaining border security and standards. Remember, as I said before, these ease port congestion, avoid delays in getting goods cleared, and help minimize the contact between the trader and customs officers. So examples of these include deployment of X-ray, scanning, and other screening technologies to undertake examinations. Video and other data feeds are used to help these remote inspections. Now, except that these don't happen overnight. And that's where, as I said, we are all learning through this pandemic. And one of the learnings is the investment in technology. You know, there's a lot of money when you have to put it up front, but the benefits of technology down the track are just something that you will always will reward you immensely. China is conducting offsite audits using various forms of technology. So China has used non-intrusive inspection equipment at railway ports, entrances and exit to increase efficiency together with the use of artificial intelligence images conveyance to be on-site. As an alternative, on-site audits, China Customs are conducting offsite audits via video or electronic data submissions. Remember, one thing we do accept, and we don't get away from the fact that there are risks in managing, in having these non-intrusive methods of inspection. So customs, really, this is our challenge, conveyance to be on site. Yes. So it's China customs are offsite audits via video. There seems to be an echo. Is that coming through to you? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr.
Oh,
Awin.
sorry. Okay, sorry. I heard an echo, so I just wanted to know. So I was just talking about China and the great steps that they are taking. Now we come to the next measure, which is removing or reducing duty on certain critical supplies. Involving reducing or eliminating tariffs and other customs fees for essential goods or critical supplies is really very helpful. These are widely being used during the pandemic. And Pa Sharif, while he made his keynote address, I think he brought about the importance of what Indonesia is doing. And I'll just mention it again. Indonesia has introduced exemptions on import duties and excise on goods used for COVID-19 countermeasures. For example, exemption of excise for ethyl alcohol used for specified purposes and the raw and supporting materials to produce non-excisable final products relating to preventing COVID-19. What a noble measure, We understand that with all developing countries, revenue is key. But here we are responding to COVID and trying to help and try to, help the cause. And we can do this by duty exemptions. Chinese Taipei and Thailand also have put in similar measures. Now, this is another measure relating to expediting clearance of certain goods. Customs administrations facilitated the import of certain products such as agri-goods, medical supplies, certain commercial vehicles, and any materials that were needed to help with this humanitarian crisis. As the enforcement authority for regulating imports and exports, customs administrations contribute to expedited border facilitation of COVID-19 vaccines and medical goods. I must talk again about Indonesia's case, where they have expedited clearance of COVID-19 vaccines and related products using rush handling facilities without carrying inspections. The slide is rather small for me, but there's a beautiful process that Indonesia has really done on exactly how the whole clearance systems will operate, right from the point of a time where an import documentation is filed through your national window and how the process is done so quickly. So, really commend Indonesia on this quick measure that they've used. The Australian Border Force also has fast-tracked things on grocery items, I understand. They have worked with the Australian government supermarkets task force to implement temporary measures to fast-track the movement of essential groceries. ABF has continued to give customs clearance to grocery items even before they arrive in Australia. So, these are just examples of measures that that we can really use to expedite and help the COVID pandemic situation. I'll start off with the COVID-19 situation in New Zealand. And this really talks about New Zealand. As you know, New Zealand is far away. The initial thought was, will COVID really affect us? Because we are in one remote part of the world. But we can think again. COVID has definitely affected us. I will start by talking about the daily confirmed and probable cases. See the slide? New Zealand reported its first case of COVID-19 in February 2020. We all thought that was one case, and then case numbers rose. In March 2020, the government, remember, we believe we went early and we went hard. We took swift action by closing the borders to all travelers except for New Zealand citizens and permanent residents. New Zealand entered to one of the strictest lockdowns ever. Case numbers, as you can see for the graph, they peaked in April 2020 and declined as a result of the strict and stringent restriction measures. New Zealanders were quickly able to enjoy certain levels of freedom compared to the other parts of the world. However, when I talk about the need for not being complacent, it is really reflected again in New Zealand's situation. The Delta variant has come on board, and it has been a game changer. In September 2021, if you'll see out here, one community case of the Delta variant was discovered and started spreading rapidly throughout the community, putting the country into an entire lockdown. As we went through level 4 lockdown recently, and as of date, Auckland and Hamilton and Northland are still in a very, very strict level 3 lockdown. So you can imagine how we have to be so alert with COVID, and particularly the different variants of COVID. There have been 4,480 cases of COVID in total, and sadly, as on the 7th of October, we have had 27 deaths. So, what has it impacted on New Zealand's trade? Right? Like most parts of the world, and I mentioned earlier, New Zealand happens to be geographically quite isolated. But that tells us one thing: we are heavily dependent on trade. We are heavily dependent. So we were very badly affected by the pandemic. You can see total exports of goods and services fell by 14.3 billion or 16.5% to 72.6 billion in the year ending March 2021. Most industries, as you can see, with the exception of wood, fruit and nuts, and telecommunications and computers, they all are export trade declined. Ongoing congestion in domestic and international ports, combined with the reliability, consistency, and pricing of shipping. Air freight capacity remains limited due to, with the exception of wood, fruit and nuts, and air freight capacity remains limited due to restricted global passenger travel. New Zealand is working closely with trading partners to help ensure that trade continues to flow unimpeded and to remove any existing trade barriers. We are particularly trying to promote medical supplies, essential goods, and to try and keep supply chains open, as well as our seaports, airports. We are trying our best to see that at least trade comes in. So here is what we are talking really about, how New Zealand Customs plays a critical role in supplying trade, in supporting trade. So we are focusing on international trade flows, providing supply, support and guidance to importers and freight forwarders and the logistics industry. We are supporting business with storage problems created by oversupply at the border. New Zealand Customs is working directly with alcohol, motor vehicle and freight industries to see that these bulk goods are actually moved quickly across so that port congestion is not affected. There is instances where New Zealand Customs is working very closely with our refining companies by approving storage of fuel on tankers for up to 2 months. So there has been different and very varied measures that we are trying to take to see that we can support supply chain flows. Now, in terms of automated clearance and release, we talk about Trade Single Window. Trade Single Window is New Zealand's key portal. You know, it's like your national window. But we worked on this for a number of years. And we're happy to say that our Trade Single Window has actually been invaluable, particularly in the pandemic. So Trade Single Window is an electronic channel for our cargo excise industries to submit information and to receive responses from all border agencies. So in many ways, it's a one-stop shop. So you get declarations. So it's Customs, MPI, that is our quarantine, Maritime New Zealand and Ministry of Health. So you file your declarations right through this Trade Single Window. It's a 21-second release time where goods are released unless there is a reason to stop them. 85% of sea cargo and 60% of air cargo are cleared before the goods are physically arrive in New Zealand. Critical supplies as PPE medicines and test kit will be cleared expeditiously and even before they arrive into New Zealand. Our JBA, our Trade Single Window system is linked with our joint border management system, and it has capability to target risk. So we target risk through this system. So you can see a lot of this is being done. And there are various examples. For example, shipments, we cleared around 300,000 PPE masks and a shipment of about 30,000 COVID testing kits so quickly. And we got it down to the places where they were badly needed. As COVID-19 and in particular the Delta variant continues to spread throughout the community, it is critical that PPE and test kits are quickly released to ensure communities can use them to protect themselves from the virus. I think I'll stop here because we are reaching close to an hour. And if it's okay, I think I'll give you a quick break and then we can proceed. So MC, what do you suggest?
Yes.
Yes?
Okay, we will have a break, sir.
Yes.
Now?
Can we have a break? Would you suggest a 15-minute break and then we can resume?
Yeah, we can continue to next presentation session, sir.
Yes.
But
okay.
I heard from our team that you want to present a song from your lovely country
Yes, I will start the presentation
with the song
a
later.
very small song. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Awin. Please have a break for a while.
Yes. So we shall rejoin at what time?
At 10:30 maybe?
13.
10:30.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Awin. And ladies and gentlemen, to fill in our 15 minutes break, just for fun, we will have a little game to play.
Okay, you can access the Mentimeter using the code that your co-host has already sent in the chat box or the link that has been shared. Please go to www.menti.com and enter the code 44885755.
Okay. Please, our co-host, share the link or the code to the chat room. Okay, already participants that join the menti.com. Once again, the code is 44885755. Yes, we will wait for more participants to join. Yes, the link already sent on the chat Zoom.
And the entry code is 44885755.
Okay, I think we can start the game. There will be 5 short easy questions, and we will begin with our first question. Please, our co-host. The first question is, what is the national animal of New Zealand? We are sorry for the typo. Okay, there's kiwi, kangaroo, koala. And the answer is kiwi. Okay, so let's see. The first rank goes to, please, our co-host. We will see our leaderboard. Okay, and the leader is Ricky Ganteng.
Congratulations to Ricky Ganteng.
Next question.
Okay, next question. The second question is, what national costumes do the MC wear?
Yeah, not the food, yeah? Okay, what traditional customs of Indonesia that we wear today? Yeah, the answer is Madura. Okay, we will see our new leaderboard.
Okay, congratulations, still Ricky Ganteng.
Yes. Oh my god, Ricky Ganteng.
Still lead.
Ganteng means handsome, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, our third question is, what is the name of Vietnam's international airport? Please don't do googling.
Soekarno-Hatta or Changi or Noi Bai?
The answer is Noi Bai. Well, let's see our new leaderboard. And the leader is okay. Congratulations, Ricky Ganteng. You're still the first.
Still leading the board. Okay, to the fourth question. And the question is, where is Petronas Twin Tower located? Singapore, Malaysia, or Brunei Darussalam?
Ricky Ganteng is answer now.
Okay, 78 participants choose Malaysia. Congratulations. And the leader is, oh, congratulations to the new leaderboard. The username 2.
Congratulations, Mr. Do. And we will now move to our last question. Who gave the opening remarks for today's webinar? Not us, exactly.
Exactly.
Yes, there's Pak Hari Mulya, Pak Askolani, and Mr. Awineto. And the answer is yes, that's right, Bapak Hari Mulya. So, who is our leader now? Wow, congratulations, Mr. Do.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And the winner is 2. Once again,
Do.
congratulations.
That's all for our game.
Okay, before we continue to our next session, let's watch the RTC Indonesia's video profile.
Welcome to the Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center, located at the Directorate General Customs and Excise Headquarters Complex in Rawamangun, East Jakarta. It was established in 1966, aiming to provide world-class quality training within the fields of customs and excise. Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center is a part of Financial Education and Training Agency under the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia and headed by a director. With its 14 best trainers who are highly qualified and well-respected specialists in their fields. The Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center has officially become the regional training center for the Asia-Pacific region after being endorsed by the head of customs administrations in the Asia-Pacific region at 21st WCO AP Regional Head of Customs Administration Conference on November 12, 2020. The commencement was marked with the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between the World Customs Organization and the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia on January 29, 2021. We organize customs and excise courses in a various number of specialized fields through the annual scheduled training programs and other additional courses to meet the training needs that arise every year. We also adopt diverse strategies to promote digital learning activities that result in the massive open online courses such as e-learning, distance learning, webinar, and talk show. The building features training facilities that consist of administrative offices for the Customs Training Department, a 100-seat auditorium for trainings and large group meetings, 19 classrooms, each with the capacity of 30 students, training lab with the equipment for simulation training, mock container examination, 3 dormitories with 70 rooms, digital learning room, computer laboratory, mini office, library, lounge, studio, main hall, dining room, fitness center, entertainment room, stadium, swimming pool, tennis court. Now, we are more than ready to be the best place to respond to officers' training needs, to forge links with neighboring countries, and to facilitate the follow-up World Customs Organization programs in the Asia-Pacific region.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you already feel fresh to start again. And for your information, the last video is a traditional dance video from our colleague on Ministry of Finance, Banyuwangi Customs Indonesia. And we want to remind you that all participants who want to ask questions after this presentation, we will move to the Q&A session. So before that, you can write your question via Zoom chat, slide do, or later you can live here by raising your hand.
Mr. Alwineto, are you ready to continue our session?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And please, if you want to sing a song, maybe.
Yes. So, comrades, thank you. After hearing your beautiful dance music and singing before, I feel I'm not going to be very worthy of even reaching anywhere near that standard. But what I'm going to do is begin this second half with a short New Zealand Maori song. So this song is a song of love, hope, and peace that I wish to each and every one of us all here present. Because this is a time of uncertainty, a time of fear, a time of wanting answers. And I think this song expresses a lot of that. The hope, the love, and peace. well. May Aroa, May Fakapuno, May Tirangi Marie, Tatu Tatu well. Tatu Tatu well. Tatu Tatu well.
Thank you, Mr. Alvineto. I never know that New Zealand has such a beautiful song. Give applause for Mr. Alvineto. Thank you, Mr. Alvineto, for introducing and entertaining us.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thank you. So I will start sharing my slide. Yes, thank you very much. Yes. Okay, so as I said, I had come close, and just to recap, so we looked at all the measures that different countries have put together and have implemented to respond to the challenges of COVID. Particularly, I'm talking about customs, how we are trying to facilitate trade, to remove trade blocks, to come together. So from then on, I went to the New Zealand situation, and I talked about some of the measures that we are putting into place. So I talked about New Zealand's trade single window, and now we talked about the remote inspections. So as far as New Zealand is concerned, we are now doing a lot of inspections by remote, by screening cargo to manage risks. We are using advanced X-rays systems which are installed even at customs controlled areas. We are currently using three-dimensional X-rays equipments. We are using data, algorithms, and we are using data for mail to improve our targeting of risks. So we are reviewing data quality. Data quality is really critical. You know, there's that saying, when you're using data, if you have bad data, you get bad results. So garbage in, garbage out. So what we have to impress and work in partnership with our traders is give us quality data, because that will help you, that will help us in our risk mitigation. So we are reviewing data quality. We say it's critical in ensuring importers, exporters, freight and courier companies comply with our customs requirements. Restricting physical inspections to only those shipments identified as high risk. This would both speed up processing times and also protect customs staff, because they have to avoid being in physical contact with traders at the same time. So these are things that we have put into place very much to assist with remote inspections to suit a COVID situation. Now, the business support that we are providing, we have introduced a lot of business financial support to help businesses continue trading. You know, There are unprecedented number of clients that are coming and seeking our support. They're coming because they are in real financial strife. So we are allowing that flexibility to allow them to continue trading. So we have mandated this under our legislation. So the types of support that we are trying to provide is first deferred payment schemes. So the deferred payment schemes allow clients and brokers to defer payment of GST on imported goods up to 6 weeks. The payment is collected electronically via direct debit. Conditions on holding an account are subject to New Zealand company registration and, of course, a credit check. We have introduced payment plans. In response to COVID-19 restriction, New Zealand has invited clients to contact us regarding extended payment terms if they are not able to pay should the due date fall. If accepted, our revenue team will work with impacted businesses to negotiate a new due date for payment or an installment scheme. Ultimately, this will assist businesses, their cash flows, and provide the much needed relief during the pandemic. So just to quote a few figures, 13 excise clients with a combined 28.2 million of debt contacted us for assistance. And we have managed to put a payment plan in process so that the debt has slowly been paid over a period of time. Debt management. We are effectively trying to manage our debt and trying to use measures that will cause as little pain as possible to our clients. Remission of compensatory interest and late payments. So we are now not being as harsh as we would have been before, because we are understanding that we are in a new normal. So we have to be much more mindful of the difficulties that traders are going through. Reduced debt recovery enforcement activities. Previously, if you did not pay your debt, we viewed it with a lot more stringent activity. But now we have sort of understand and are playing to a situation. So Customs has negotiated payment terms with nearly 350 business worth more than 130 million worth of debt. Very little debt remains outstanding because we are working with traders, we are working with business to see how they can also cooperate with us. Measures like this give them the much breathing space and really helps us. And remember, New Zealand's whole program on business helps traders, and that's why the World Bank has ranked New Zealand as number 1 in the ease of doing business. And this is something that we are really proud of. As I mentioned earlier, we have the Secure Export Partnership Scheme. And this is critical. This is a critical WCO SAFE program that helps countries to develop, manage, and maintain secure international supply chains. So New Zealand has expanded its AEO program to a number of other areas where we can try and help. So the benefits of using an SES scheme is international recognition of exports via a secure supply chain. Less document checks, inspections and interventions all over the supply chain. Reduced export transaction fees. So in some cases, a lot of transaction fees are much less, and that's another benefit from a monetary point of view. This ensures low risk imports and exports flow through with minimum intervention. We have customs staff located at a number of our areas all over the globe of different posts, like myself, who's based in Jakarta. So, we are trying to help different of our exporters to avail of these schemes. New Zealand has made it much more easier for businesses to join SES, in particular our indigenous Maori exporters. So what we are looking at, you look from the slide, the savings, $4.7 million saving in export transaction fees, 115 billion of New Zealand exports are going through this. You can see that there is so much benefit in joining up to these schemes, And while we have these schemes, we have mutual recognition agreements with our prominent trading partners. So we have a MRA with Australia, Canada, China, Hong Kong, Japan, Republic of Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, and the United States. And we are currently negotiating MRAs with Thailand, Malaysia, and the UK. So these are schemes these are MRAs whereby each country will mutually recognize each other's SES or AU programs. Key to this is our actual face-to-face and best support that we try to provide to our New Zealand traders. We try and work as closely as possible to address any risks, any delays in receipt of goods, in customs clearance. We have a dedicated call center which works long hours to actually answer queries from people. So on a wide range of matters, input processes, export processes, quarantine requirements, a whole number of areas. We have a call. You just have to ring up our call center and you'll get the information available. We also have an email address whereby you will get a lot of the information sent to you. I want to point out that we have an excellent portal. That's our customs website, where if you log in, you will get information very user-friendly on a number and a range of topics. Also want to point out to our Valuation Origin Classification Advisory Unit. It's a specialist unit that deals with valuation, origin, classification, and all free trade agreement matters. Knowing that we have so many different free trade agreements and people want to know rules of origin, how they are implemented, and these will give you proper advice. Industry representatives have really found, and we have been rated very high in terms of our engagement with private sector and the trade through different forums, through meetings, through even taking them up at higher levels and engaging with them with our other New Zealand Inc. agencies. So in terms of a future outlook, while we are still in the midst of this global pandemic, it is appropriate to have an eye on the future. So we have modified our whole auditing systems to suit, because obviously earlier you had the face-to-face audits, but now because of separation, because of people having lesser face-to-face interactions, we are trying to manage our audits through a lot of document audit, through a lot of lack of face-to-face engagement. We are getting data sent well in advance. When the data sent us to us well in advance, we are able to assess the data, use our risk management strategies. So this is the limitations on the interventions at the border, and we are making increasing use of post audits, so that we don't stop goods at the border unless we really need to. And this again is one of the measures that I would strongly encourage other administrations to use. Use post audit. Don't stop goods unless you really need to at the border, and engage in post audit and other such type of activity. So this is the future outlook and recommendations that some of us have thought about when we look at the pandemic situation and where to from here. Facilitating COVID vaccines. I think this is really, really critical. As we rise, as we have new variants of the viruses emerging, we are not out of the woods as yet. We need to be constantly on our game. Global vaccination distribution is going to be critical in bringing the pandemic to an end. This depends on an effective supply chain, logistics systems, and facilitation of cross-border flows of vital medical supplies. Customs Administration's role is critical for timely and effective distribution of vaccines. We have to address the bottlenecks and remove trade restrictions on COVID vaccines and critical supplies. I'll put on the slide actually some of the real key points that have been mentioned by some real, in this case, the WTO Director General, where he talks about the inequitable access to vaccines, and the diverse is really creating a lot of problems. The longer this vaccine inequality is allowed to persist, the greater are the dangerous variants, the variations of the virus emerging. And this is having severe setbacks on health and economic progress. So, in fact, the CEO of DHL has mentioned that vaccines are in development, and their ability to end this pandemic depends on effective supply and supply to all locations. So we can't get away from the fact of how important the distribution of the vaccines are. Implement trade facilitation measures for recovery. So some of the key points that I've already mentioned, it is to accelerate implementation of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. That is critical. Digitalize and modern customs processes. I talked about technology, and I know we have the word smart, and one of the key part of smart is technology. So we need to use data, digitalize and modernize our customs procedures. Many of our customs legislations of many countries are actually outdated. They need to be brought up to the times. In fact, we are having the ANSFATA upgrade, the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Agreement that was signed somewhere around 2009. We are now doing an upgrade, modernizing it. And in this, we are putting in a lot of digitalization initiatives as best as we can. Improve communication with stakeholders and traders. I can't tell you how important it is to work in partnership. See, customs only has part of the answers. The traders, they are the people who are actually running business. So we need to hear, we need to listen to them, and we have to work in partnership. working in partnership also with our New Zealand Inc. agencies. That's what we do. So the other government agencies like Ministry of Trade, like Ministry of Quarantine, speak together because you know that you need to work together because you have to actually deliver outcomes for society. Have flexible regulations, whereby you're not stuck into certain hard rules. Make it a little more flexible. Keep supply chains open. Remove unnecessary trade restrictions. The whole idea is removing barriers to trade. Try and encourage freer trade. Enhance cooperation with government agencies, which I talked about. And like we are doing here, share your best practices. One of the best things that has come about with COVID is the realization from all countries, from all customs administrations, that we cannot do it alone. We have to work together in partnership, not only with the agencies, but with these others and share best practice. Remember, so many of these learnings that have come about are from other countries. It's not only New Zealand. New Zealand is sharing with other countries to learn some of the good, some of the problems we had. And so that, others can also take that on board while they refine their processes. That's about it as I'm closing down to my presentation. I just wanted to say that there is a Maori saying, He waka eke noa, a canoe which we are all in with no exception. We are into it together. Another saying which says, Vaio ete taipota kapoa ete tairoa. Let us keep together, do not wide apart. Let us continue, friends, this spirit of cooperation as we work together. On this note, I thought I would end my presentation with this song from the beat group Maroon 5, the beautiful song Memories. So why I chose the song Memories? Because it's a song about resilience, of hope and promise. That even though everything right now may not be all right at the moment in the world, we must remember and enjoy the beautiful memories, the people. I've had a journey of 3.5 years, particularly in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia, visiting Cantik, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, all the wonderful countries in this place. So these are memories that I cling on to, and I share them with my family, my friends, my colleagues. And I would say that we must overcome, and as we say, we must overcome together. So bear with me while I sing this last song as a conclusion to my presentation. Here's to the one that we got. Here's to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the one here today. Toast to the one that we've lost on the way. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories. All the memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember when I never felt no pain, when I believed in forever, that everything would stay the same. But my heart feel like December when somebody say your name. 'Cause I can't reach out to call you, but I know I will one day. Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. Everything gonna be alright. Go and raise a glass and say, here's to the ones that we got. Here's to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the one that we've lost on the way. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back here. Memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember when I never felt so lost, when I felt all of the hatred was too powerful to stop. Now my heart feels like the ember, and it's lighting up the dark. I'll carry these torches for you that you know I'll never drop. Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. Everything gonna be alright. Go and raise a glass and say, here's to the ones that we got. Here's to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the one that we lost on the way. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give applause for Mr. Awineto. Thank you so much, Mr. Awineto, for the presentation and for your wonderful voice. Hope all participants can remember our special moment today. Okay, now we will move to the Q&A session, sir. Okay, we will begin with the live from the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question, please raise your hand by clicking on the reaction icon in the middle right of your screen, then click raise hand, please. Okay, if there is no live question now, we will move to the question that is already submitted on the Slido or Zoom chat. Please, our co-host, share the question.
Please, our co-host, share screen the question from Slido. Okay.
Question from Miss D. How is New Zealand Customs tackling COVID-19 and consequences it brings? What other countries, especially countries in Asia Pacific, can learn from it? Please, Mr. Awineto.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. So the first thing I can say is that New Zealand has learned a lot from other countries, opening borders, whether we close the borders, it was all a learning game because no one really had the answers. So slowly over a period of time, we started learning from other countries. But one thing we realized that we had to act fast and we had to take stringent measures. Time was the essence. That was the first thing that we learned. And even the latest Delta variant, which has suddenly crept through, and the mutations that occur, if you do not act quickly, you'll have a large spread of the virus. And then your hospitals, your whole systems will completely break down. So that's one thing we've learned. And that's why there has been lots of different ways and approaches by each country has taken. But we believe that the way we have worked, fast, hard, early, clamp down, have a lockdown, contain the virus, stamp it out, that's one of the successes we feel has worked for us. Now again, this may not work for all other countries, but what you've got to realize that is, if you don't act early, you tend to have the virus spreading, and then you'll have completely the health system breaking down. You'll have thousands and millions of people getting the virus, and the number of deaths. So that's our first learning that we've thought of. Secondly, trade. Trade is critical. Supply chains are critical. Partnerships are critical. As I mentioned in my previous slides, you need to work together. You need to work with your own government agencies, and you need to work with your international partners. I can't tell you how close I felt working in Jakarta and working with Indonesian customs. I am so proud, and my colleagues back in New Zealand, I always talk about Indonesian customs, and I talk about Pa Sharif, I talk about Ibu Monica, I talk about, Ibu Ririn, all the people who I'm so close to and who help us. But we work, we share our thoughts together. And I think that is really critical. You can't do it alone. And COVID has taught us that COVID has no borders. It just moves. So we do not work together, we will not be able to meet this huge challenge. Technology investment was huge. Right now we are speaking through Zoom. I can see more than 230, 240 people have joined. That is because technology has brought us all together. So there are so many learnings that New Zealand has found out of this COVID. And that's why we believe that let's think that COVID has not only done bad, there are some good things that have come out of COVID. I hope that has answered your question.
Thank you, Mr. Alwineto.
Now we can see some participants already raised their hand. Please, Mr. Theo from Singapore. Mr. Theo, are you with us? Please unmute the audio.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Theo. Please unmute the audio first.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute myself. I'm not sure why. Sorry. Yeah, anyway, I just want to say thanks to Elwin. I think you did a very, very good presentation. You set a very high benchmark for all the future presenters. I enjoyed your songs and of course, especially the points that you have shared in the 1 hour plus presentation. I think you raised a lot of good points. And I think New Zealand Customs has given tremendous support to the businesses during the pandemic, and there's a lot for Singapore to learn from New Zealand as well. I have a question actually on paperless trade, because I think we usually approach paperless trade thinking that it should be a customs duty. It's a customs role to go paperless. But I also realized that in facilitating trade for businesses, some businesses also refuse to change or to move. For example, we did try to go paperless for cargo clearance a few years ago, and the biggest resistance actually did not come from customs or other authorities, but from the trade themselves. Because they say they require the hard copy cargo clearance permit or something so that they could, even with a customs chop, right? So that they can get a certain, so that they can prove that the items has already been exported or imported or things like that. So my question to you is really, if customs is ready to go, but businesses are not ready to go paperless, to help them in the recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic, what can be done to sort of entice the businesses to go more towards digitalization and paperless trade? Maybe from the experience of New Zealand customs. Thanks, Alvin.
Thank you so much. I think that is a brilliant question. And it's a question that is always at the top of my mind. So paperless trade is, I think, something that is really, really going to be so important in times to come. And the thing is, as you have rightly pointed out, it's not a customs only initiative. This is definitely an all agency, an all government, and all private sector. Everyone has to buy into it. And I'll tell you, since you just raised the question, we have the ASEAN single window, and I have been attending some of the meetings. And some of the challenges we faced in the ASEAN single window is that, again, not all stakeholders are buying into it. So, it's a brilliant idea, it's a brilliant concept, but when you look at it, why is it taking so long? And it is for the simple reason that people, in some ways, have their own vested interests to continue with the documents, to continue with, for example, to have more staff. The staff will lose their jobs. There is pushback that, if things go electronic, they'll be done so quickly that maybe we won't be able to justify our existence. So this is the reason is one has to really look first and foremost, what are the barriers for paperless trade? So once what we've done with New Zealand, we've gone back and had deep consultation with all our stakeholders. Primarily, I'll say that business, because remember, it all is very, very rests on business. So we are in consultation with them, and we've told them, so if this is something that you want, one is all of us have to work together. Customs will change. We'll have to try and say that all the other organizations together can actually take up on this particular project. And we sit together. I think sitting together, working in dialogue is key. Because as you rightly mentioned, there is no point customs becoming all technical and then the traders are not able to connect to that system. It doesn't make sense. Or it's the other way around. The traders may have the best systems that they have done, but if they can't connect, if there's no interoperability, then it doesn't solve the problem. So that's why I think it's a question of really sitting in dialogue together, showing the benefits. See, that's why in my presentation, I realized two things when you talk to trade. One is they want monetary benefits to be shown and they want time. Can this thing be done faster? So we have to show them that in paperless trade, you may make an investment earlier on, but down the track, you will have so much of cost savings. You'll have things done so much faster. But as I said, all have to buy into it. And not only when I say the governments, but all of us as trading partners, we have to buy into this to make it work. Excellent point, and I think very thought-provoking. I hope that answers your question in some way.
Thank you, Ms. Teo from Singapore, and thank you, Mr. Awinito. And we want to remind you for all participants, if there are any questions from the floor, please raise your hand. And now we already have Mr. Yudi from ICETC that raised his hand. Please, Mr. Yudi.
I mean, it's a very inspiring presentation. I went to New Zealand when I was young, years ago. I'm still amazed by the beauty of your country. I have a question here. What do you think Indonesia, as the next G20 president, can do to promote trade facilitation?
Thank you, Yudi. I think, it's a very good question. And two things I'll try to say here. One is what Indonesia has done. And believe me, Yudi, I have been in the region. And over the past 3 years, and I'm being honest, and I've seen a whole journey. And I've seen Indonesia come so far and fast. So from that point of view, I think Indonesia has got a lot to be proud of. And, because I had a very short part of a presentation, I couldn't highlight some of the great things that Indonesia, that I actually know that they have done. The way they've got their trade single window system, the way they have their risk management system that they are starting up, the way they have their green lane, orange lane, red lane status. The way they have organized themselves and they are working and moving forward is very, very commendable. But as I said, like New Zealand, we are always wanting to learn from others. And that's what I think New Zealand, what I think Indonesia needs to do is decide on certain areas of what the other developing partners are doing. Just for example, we talk about electronic documents. Now, if you feel or digital transformation as paperless trade, so how can you use that in your system and into your processes? And if you are convinced that that is necessary, then I think customs administrations will be able to work with you to be able to get that done. I'll give you an example. With the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, we have a support committee that helps all the member countries, the ASEAN countries, to promote their systems. So if you're talking about a particular, now take for instance, right now, there's an advanced ruling system that all countries want. So advanced rulings is on tariff classification, valuation, and origin in advance of imports. So right now we are giving training to all these countries to update their systems. So once Indonesia identifies this is what really we want to do, whether it be in risk management, whether it be paperless trade, I think you approach countries, your other countries who are doing capacity building, and I'm sure they will reach out and be willing to help. Thank you.
Do you think Indonesia position as the president of G20, what Indonesia can do from that position?
Another very good question. And I'll tell you one thing, Indonesia right now, and I've been talking, they are the vice chair of the World Customs Organization, Asia Pacific region. And I have to be really proud to say they have done an excellent job in all the events that they have put forward. And I attend the WCO Asia Pacific meetings. And I think the way that they have progressed the meetings has been admirable. So being a G20 party, as you just talked about, again, that gives you, you can only do things if you're sitting at the table. And when you are at the table, you've got to decide, what are my priorities? See, the problem with most government organizations, including our World Customs Organization sitting in Brussels or even in Asia Pacific, we have so many agenda items. We've got to decide what is the important item. So there is too many priorities. If there are too many priorities, what is the priority? So that's what we've got to decide. So the pandemic situation has thrown a lot of us into a particular type, and we will have to now cut down on all the things we considered as priorities and decide these are the 2 or 3 things that we want. And I think if Indonesia has got a seat at the table, they will be able to influence these priorities. Thank you.
Yeah, Ora, I will.
Thank you, Bapak Yudi, and thank you, Mr. Alwin.
Okay, next we will move to the question submitted on the Zoom chat or Slido. Our co-host. Okay, thank you. The question, from Mr. Ja'far. The question is, what is the percentage rate of physical inspection of imported goods in New Zealand, and how to speed up physical inspection during pandemic? Please, Mr. Alwin.
Thank you, Mr. Jafar. Just off the top of my head, I can't give you the actual statistics of physical inspections, but I can tell you one thing. New Zealand does risk-based targeting, both from the border security point of view as well as from a trade perspective. So if you lodge an entry through the system, this entry will go through unless we have real reason to stop it. And that's critical. And our risk management system is really high and well tested. So the way we have our risk-based targeting of goods, the rules we use to apply risk-based targeting, they are proven. And we know that if we target certain goods, we will definitely have a reason and we will have a good outcome in those inspections. We do not physically inspect just for the sake of inspection. That's the big difference. There has to be a reason why we would stop and do an inspection. And that's where sometimes when I look at some of the countries, and I look at even when they are doing their audits, I keep asking them, see, this particular country, for example, this particular trader, and I know that trader, for example, is a very prominent, has got a very good reputation. And sometimes I find that again and again, their goods are being stopped. So the question that I ask is, why are you wasting your time trying to stop this? And I'm not saying you have every reason to stop, but are you doing it based on some basis? So where's your risk based? And that's the real thing. You will do physical inspections the way I see it, when you need to, when you are required to do. And it's the same thing with passengers. When passengers come through the airports, you don't stop every passenger and take him to the red booth, right? You have a reason where you suspect someone, you identify, or for some good reason, you need to go and do a search of that passenger. And that principle will apply. Have good targeting rules so you will identify the right person to have an inspection, and that will work really much better. And review your processes. If you're not getting good results, there must be something wrong. Review your process, refine your process. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Jafar, and thank you, Mr. Alwin. Next question is from Mr. Ahmad Zaki. It is very remarkable what you did with that from the business. Do you have any concern from government that customs need to collect revenue, especially in the era of COVID? 130 million is quite significant. Please, Mr. Alwin.
Ahmad, I absolutely understand what you're saying. This is where trade facilitation and revenue sort of has to be really weighed and assessed. Because I know one of the mandates of all countries, even including New Zealand, is revenue. So don't think that revenue is not a consideration for us. Of course it is. But what we have got to realize, you balance the revenue interests with trade facilitation, you know. So I believe that with trade facilitation efforts, helping your traders, giving them better schemes, giving them all the support, giving them all the schemes that you can give them financially, assistance from the World Bank or whatever schemes that can come up, you can help them much better and your trade volumes will go up. See, New Zealand's our import duties, we have very few import duties on a few goods. It's just mainly on textiles, clothing, footwear, and a few other machinery items. And the reason is that of course, we do collect GST, that's your VAT. But what I'm saying is that we've realized that by facilitating trade, we get the same benefits. Now, I do understand for countries like, say, Indonesia and most countries in Southeast Asia, you definitely need the revenue for your plans. The government needs that revenue. But as I said, collect legitimate revenue. Because what happens is sometimes, I have observed that sometimes in some countries, you just issue claims or you stop goods and you stop trade. And sometimes these are not what I would say claims or revenue claims that will stick. So if it is due revenue, you believe that they need to be collected, definitely that's what your legislation is saying. But like right now in the pandemic situation, your government has been so noble to come and realize that this is a need. We need to waive import duties on, say, medicines and certain COVID testing or whatever equipment. And you've come forward. So I think this whole thing needs to be balanced. Collect revenue where you need to. You definitely need to collect every dollar of the revenue that you are required to do under your by legislation. But at the same time, it should be legitimate. It should be something that that you need to collect. And I suppose you can look at other alternative ways in which you can help traders to actually facilitate trade, and that will give you some very good benefits as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad and Mr. Alwin. Okay, next question, please. From Mr. Irwan, how does NZ tackle the lack of coordination among border agencies? Please.
Again, a very good question from Pa Irwan. Thank you very much. Now you must be seeing my designation, First Secretary Customs, and I'm a customs employee. You can see my banner behind me. I'm a customs employee, but I've been seconded to MFAT, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So you can see from that there is a reason why I've been seconded. And that's why, and the reason is New Zealand government is very clear that government agencies have to work together. So they say the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, MFAT, and Customs and Quarantine, we have been told that we have to work very closely together to support trade, to support our exporters, and to work with overseas government agencies, to work with the international trading partners or other trading partners. We believe that having these what we call silos and bottlenecks doesn't work. It doesn't work in the long term. It's just each one doing their own thing. Whereas when you hold hands together and work together, you have that coordinated approach. So whenever we are sitting at meetings, and you will see many meetings with say, private sector, you will very rarely see an only customs meeting. You will see a table, and I can just relate to you, and someone may support me when I said in 2019 December, I took a delegation of Indonesian government officials. They were from Ministry of Trade, they were from Customs, they were from quarantine, they were from private sector. I took them all to New Zealand to learn about our processes to facilitate trade. And throughout most of the sessions, we had a huge presence of all our government agencies, which was primary industries, which is our quarantine. There was Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, there was Customs, there was private sector, there was MBIE, which talks about immigration and all these other matters, the dumping duties and all the other things. So there were about 5 or 6 agencies sitting together, collaborating together, and taking collective responsibility of an issue. And that's why sometimes traders come to me and they say, why do we have to write only to Customs? Or why do we have to write only to Ministry of Trade or Foreign Affairs? Why can't we only write to Customs? Why isn't there a one-stop shop for our information requirements? Because what is happening, I've realized with many customs administrations, without naming is, if a trader has an issue, he goes to a particular agency, be it Customs, be it Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. But that person sends him to another person, and that person will send him to NZ, the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, or to the Chambers of Commerce. But what the trader wants is an answer to the problem. And that's the reason why I know this is long-term thinking, this is aspirational, but having a portal whereby one shop to try and give you the answer to the problem, to all trade-related problems, not only customs, will be the future. I'm not saying that it's happening in New Zealand, but we are trying to sit together and solve these problems. But I believe you are right. Coordination among border agencies is critical. And I won't say only among border agencies. Partnership with the trade is equally important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Awinito. I think that's all for the Q&A session. We are very sorry because our limited time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your participations, and thank you once again, Mr. Awin, for the comprehensive answer. And I want to remind for participants that we asked to join the breakout room for the interview. Please join after our co-host open the breakout room.
Before we close I'm sorry?
Just one last,
okay.
If I may, there is one last thing. I will make available my PowerPoint presentation to all the participants. I will be sending it to the Regional Training Center. So be assured that you will get a copy of my PowerPoint, and feel free to contact me for any queries. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Alwin, for the presentation. Before we close our webinar today, ladies and gentlemen, we want to know your feedback about this webinar. So please fill the evaluation form after joining this webinar on the link tree below. For those who want to get the certificate, please ensure that you fill the evaluation form.
Thank you very much, Mr. Awinito, for the great presentation and sharing about trade facilitation measures to address COVID-19 with us today. Before we end this webinar, Mr. Awinito, would you like to give the closing statement?
Yeah, I will definitely like to say, and first of all, again, I am really humbled that Sheriff Pa Harry has and the other Indonesian officials of the Regional Training Center invited me to actually speak on this occasion. It is a real privilege and honor, and I enjoyed sharing some of the knowledge that I have and something about trade facilitation, which is something very close to my heart. I just reiterate the words of my song that I sang, that we are all in this together. I've enjoyed my time in Indonesia. The people that I meet, They say you fall in love with the country, you fall in love actually with the people. That's more important. And they have been so friendly. They've given me all the memories that I shared with you today. So I just continue, and I say we all continue our journey in life. There is a crisis right now with COVID, but I believe crises get people together. You know, if you don't have problems, you sort of each one drifts apart. But when there is a crisis, you come together, you share your problems, you work together, and you enjoy, let's say, a problem shared is a problem halved. So I think that's the key message that I would give you. Continue our partnership, continue the learning. We are all on a journey together, and let's learn together and let's stay safe together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alwineto. As the closing statement is already given, that concludes today's webinar and also our last series on 2021. See you on 2022 Custom Collage series.
Please stay safe and stay healthy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your participation today. I'm Sylvia.
And I'm Caesar. Good day and Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Customs Collage, where you can learn anywhere, anything and anywhere about customs. Find it only Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center. Customs Collage, collaboration beyond the age.
Indonesia is the most beautiful land in the universe. The land where we were born, the nation where we grew up. So many colors that live together in peace. With a million timeless treasures. With an abundance of natural wealth. Indonesia is not just wonderful. Indonesia is a wonderland.
dengan ini menyatakan kemerdekaan Indonesia. Hal-hal yang mengenai pemindahan kekuasaan dan lain-lain diselenggarakan dengan cara yang sama dan dalam tempo yang sesingkat-singkatnya. Jakarta, 11 Agustus 1945.